All right, I guess we'll get started. Again, we're not going to have Will today because she's not feeling well. Um, so we'll go ahead and get started. All right, there is nobody here and nobody else in Zoom land for privilege of the floor. Don't have any of that today. And that brings us to the minutes from the previous meeting. And just two items I know I want to bring up. Barb had mentioned about Bruce, and again, I just hadn't been doing it, listing attendees, but I'm happy to have us think about whether that's something we want to do or not.
Yeah, so what really caught my eye this time is just because in the minutes it mentions a resident, something that we discussed was in response to a question asked by a resident. So I thought, oh, we should know who that resident is. So, that was my thought process. And from the notion of wanting to prove and demonstrate that the planning board meetings are, open to the public, it just struck me as, possibly a good practice to list who the people are who are attending. But if that's not a common thing for Town of Caroline committee meetings, then that's fine too.
Okay. Yeah, and Michelle, I think you guys definitely don't do it for town board meetings, is that right? You don't list members of the public who attend.
No, but I think if somebody speaks, we list their names.
Okay. Now, Bruce,
It's
yeah, like at privilege of the floor, because Bruce didn't want to speak at privilege of the floor, he brought an item up, but so we could meet. I guess part of me doesn't want to do it in the sense that I don't want people to feel like, oh, if I come to a meeting, my name's there. I mean, they're allowed to just sit and listen and be anonymous if they want to be.
Sure.
But I also get the point about here's someone who spoke, participated in the meeting. So,
well, that's why I'm pretty sure for town board minutes, if somebody speaks, they list their name. They wouldn't just say a guest or something. They'd say.
Okay.
So you have people sign in for privilege of the floor, like they write their names down so that you have that.
Yeah. So let's say this is exactly what happened, of course, because this does happen in town board too, that someone who didn't speak at privilege of the floor happens to chip in a comment during the meeting that is allowed. You guys have a policy for that?
But I can ask Jessie, who does our minutes, what her policy is.
We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. So it's not often you can say that, but
Yeah. Well, Adam or Brad, you guys have any thoughts?
I mean, my thoughts are to list the person's name if we know them, like if they speak. I think if they don't chime up and we don't know who they are, I mean, I don't think we need to like chase people down like, who are you? List your name here, rank and file. But at the same time, I don't think I think it is kind of nice to say that someone was in attendance or as Michelle was saying about the privilege of the floor, of course, but even just speaking up, I don't think these meetings are something that someone would have to be afraid of. I don't think, at least currently, are not really on any divisive topic. I mean, I think perhaps um you know, people, if they were afraid, could um, let us know if they were not wanting their name mentioned, in the minutes or something.
And just to a point at the meeting, and I did this because you weren't here. I mean, you were off in Zoomland, Bill, is before Bruce spoke, or as he was beginning to speak, I asked him, can you identify yourself for the record?
Right.
So
yeah,
that is what it is.
And someone addressing the board should probably do that. But okay, so
Michelle has a point.
Oh, sorry, Michelle. Sorry.
No, if somebody were speaking, we didn't know who they were, we would definitely ask who they were. We would ask them to identify themselves.
Okay. So what it says in the minutes right now is in the heart of the minutes, it says that I know that we could perhaps add a guideline about mowing be done best times for wildlife management, and then just says in response to a query from a resident attending. So would the suggestion be that there we could say in response to a query from Bruce Murray, who was, attending, or do we need him up front where it says who's here, versus Guillermo Metz guest, and was the suggestion that under that it say Bruce Murray?
That was my thought, just list him as, an attendee. And, whatever language you want to use.
Well, that's the question. So we
I
put
mean,
in,
just, it seems weird to have the, attending and not have his name then, and then have his name show up in the minutes. I mean, that's weird to me, and I wouldn't recommend doing that.
okay, so we put Bruce in at the top, and we say member of the public, or how do we label him?
Yeah, member of the public. I mean, that's the.
Because
He
again,
wasn't here like representing the review board or something,
Resident.
right,
so-
right. That's what I was going to say. He could have been representing the review board, but he wasn't. So you would want to make a distinction, right? That he wasn't.
Resident.
Yeah, town resident. I mean, as Indy, my language in a couple different minutes has been guest, if it is someone we have invited to the meeting, that's who a guest is. Public attending, are not guests. So resident seems fine,
Yeah.
and then does his name show up again in that other spot? In response to a query from Bruce Murray, rather than a resident attending?
I'm agnostic about that one.
All right. Anyone else have a feeling on whether Bruce gets mentioned in that particular section? I mean, I would tend to do it only because that's the whole damn reason he's mentioned previously. And we're not, in general, I think, gonna mention town residents if they don't speak, because again, I think that's perfectly fine to simply sit here and listen and not need to be identified.
I would say don't even mention him if you don't mention him in the minutes. If they don't come up in the minutes, then they.
Yeah, I mean, the other, and I could also take away in response to a query from a resident attending, I put it in part because I thought it was nice to acknowledge that we did.
We're responsive.
Right, exactly.
A resident had a good idea, a good question. It's all good.
All right. So I don't care if it could also be in response to a query from the resident attending. This was the only one. Or I can say Bruce's name. I will do it either way. How about a vote? Should we say in response to a query from Bruce Murray? All those in favor say, or raise their hand, I guess.
Sure.
All right, we'll do it. Okay, and then the other question, I wanted to just clarify, Brad, mostly with you as I put in the minutes. So there was this, potential idea, which we'll eventually get to, about whether to essentially qualify for whatever benefits might accrue to a agrivoltaic installation in town of Caroline, that it be done by I don't know what word to use, a real farmer defined by New York State as someone engrossing more than $10,000. I think that was your suggestion. I want to just clarify whether that farmer only had to make $10,000 somehow, not only on agrivoltaic installations. Okay.
Correct. That the 10,000 was just because that's New York State's qualifier. You have to make $10,000 of gross receipts from farming to qualify as an agricultural operation and get any sort of agricultural discount. Now, in the case of agrivoltaics, I don't think I was trying to make that qualification to say, well, this should qualify for an ag discount from a tax purpose, but just from the standpoint of we're trying to, if the whole point is to encourage farming on the solar sites of some sort, well, sounds like you would want a farmer to do that. And so, there have been variety of definitions of farmer tossed about. I think we should just stick with the standard New York State definition to stay in line with them. what qualifies as a farm and a commercial farmer, I guess, operation. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so it's like put a pin in that, because that's a topic we should definitely address. Right now, I'm just trying to clarify the minutes. But yeah, I think that that's a point that bears discussion, because there's been critiques sometimes that that's not the right threshold for Caroline. But I think we need to think about it, so that's definitely a topic we should address, if not later this meeting, then at the next meeting. Okay, so I think that does it with those corrections, clarifications in the minutes. Are we okay with the minutes from last meeting?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Michelle, what do you have to tell us from the town board? It's a little bit of budget, probably.
Yes, we've basically been working on the budget, which is, we're ready to vote on it. So, I guess the only other thing is, there was a hearing about the, old 76 road solar installation, about the whole pilot that Mark and I went to, but there wasn't any opportunity. I mean, Mark he wrote them a letter, but we weren't, we didn't have the opportunity to ask questions or anything like that. And he pointed out that it's confusing to him. I think I've got this right. They're doing it like it's 4 separate installations rather than one big one, which changes the rate of, what they get discounted. And he was just wondering why that was happening, but he didn't get any, as far as I know, he did not get a response from that, so.
Okay, yes, and I had a few chats with Mark, not in depth about this, but yes, for everyone else, this project is like been broken up into a 5, a 5, a 5, and a 3 or something like that, 3 something maybe megawatt projects. And that is indeed because above 5 megawatts, there's some other threshold thing that kicks in. And I think that the I don't know, it means the pilot rate would be higher. I don't remember the details. Maybe you do, Michelle. And for whatever reason, the local development agency is allowing them to segment the project into 4 smaller pieces. But that is out of our hands, which we'll actually discuss. Okay, anything else from town board?
No, I can't think of it, anything. We have a meeting tomorrow and we'll vote the budget in and interview a potential member for the review board and things like that, but that's it.
All right, great, thanks. All right, so that brings us on to the question of pilots. So, Adam, you have a chance to look. Okay, so I tasked Adam with looking into some basic questions about basically, who this Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency is, and also this Ithaca Area Economic Development, how they're selected, how their policies get established, and then a particular question about the tax percentage, and if you got to that part or not. So tell us about these groups.
Sure. So the TCIDA is a public benefit corporation governed by the 7-member board of directors. They are members of the TCIDA, that's a mouthful to say, are appointed by the Tompkins County Legislature. They're composed of county legislature members. The IAED is a nonprofit organization. It was formerly known as Tompkins County Area Development, TCAD, which would have been a lot easier to say.
Yeah.
And it manages the administrative services for TCIDA. Its board of directors is chosen internally, which representation from various community sectors. The selection process is the board is appointed internally by the organization itself, often at the first quarterly meeting of the year. It's comprised of individuals from a wide array of sectors, including education, government, nonprofit and community organizations, industry and business, maybe real estate people or manufacturing. There are 3-year terms. So that is how the members are chosen.
Okay. Do you for the TCIDA whatever? Yeah, is that How long are those terms? Do you happen to know? It's not a huge question, just was wondering if you happen to come across that.
I think they're 3-year terms.
Well, it was 3 terms. I thought that was for the Ithaca area, but are you saying that the 3-year terms are for the Tompkins County?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, I misunderstood what you said.
No, no,
The county legislature.
no, that might be. I don't.
Okay. All right. So the reason, and so I just want to know where okay, so there are legislators that are actually, so the ones negotiating the pilot is the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency, so TCIDA.
Yes.
So they do the actual pilot negotiation, and you're
Yes.
saying that the area economic development is basically like a, I don't know, that's the administrators, and they are sort of supervising that board in some sense.
Correct. They handle all the background stuff. The PCIDA makes the decision, and the IAED makes it happen.
Okay, yeah, so in some sense, the decision-making power is with the IDA, and that's how the state set it up, so those are authorized by the state.
Yeah.
To do that kind of thing. And so in terms of them determining their policies, like what to do in terms of solar, how does that get
Right.
done?
So they have like 3 different ways of making policy. Number 1 is the board responsibility and authority. The 7-member TCIDA board of directors who are appointed by the Tompkins County Legislature is the governing body responsible for setting all agency policies. The board is required to adopt policies, bylaws, and practices for the effective governance and operations of authority, and typically reviews these policies annually.
Okay,
I did send you this email just recently.
okay.
So the
Yeah,
adoption,
that's a standard, that part is standard boilerplate
Yeah.
for government, like
Yep.
committees and agencies, you gotta have your, I mean, any, whatever you call it, but, it has to have the policy, right? Yeah.
Yep. I think this next one is where it actually gets to them, because it talks about pilots right here. So adoption of required policies. As a public authority in New York State, the TCIDA is legally mandated to adopt and implement specific policies which form the core of its operational framework. These policies include uniform tax exemption policy. This is a critical policy that defines the criteria, scope, and structure for providing financial assistance, such as payment in lieu of taxes to projects. The Uniform Tax Exemption Policy, or UTEP, guides staff and applicants on what types of exemptions are available and under what conditions. Procurement Policy. This policy details the procedures for the agency's own purchase of goods and services, ensuring prudent and economical use of public funds through competitive bidding and other methods. Investment Policy. This governs how the agency manages its funds not immediately required for expenditure. Uniform Evaluation Policy. This policy sets the criteria for evaluating project applications, including the cost-benefit analysis used to weigh the public cost of assistance against the projected community benefits. So I think that's really where the pilot really, and also where the IDAs are kind of being the article you sent.
Yeah, were they really fulfilling
Yeah.
the mission properly or
Yeah,
not?
I mean, I don't think with solar, it's one you were sent us was about housing.
Right. That was, I think there's a general critique about these
Yeah.
development authorities, but yeah.
All right. Number 3 was deliberation and formal approval. The process for establishing or modifying any of these policies generally involves staff work, which is what the IAED staff does. So they'll do all the drafting, revised policy language, all that stuff. Board review and discussions. The proposed policy or amendment is presented to the board of directors, often over multiple meetings. Board members will review, discuss, questions, deliberate, and ensure the policy meets the agency's mission and statutory obligations. So then there's a public accountability. The board's policy setting and decisions are conducted during public meetings as required by the open meetings law, ensuring transparency. Formal resolution. The policy is officially adopted by a resolution requiring a vote by the board of directors. For certain key policies or deviations, a special majority vote may be required.
So the policy is adopted by the board in an open vote. Okay, and what I'm partly wondering, just what I was curious about, whether there was some public part of that process, like do they have a public hearing that's saying, hey, we're thinking of doing this for our solar policy? Do you know if there's anything like that that occurs?
And I don't know if they have like a truly public meeting like what the town does, but.
Yeah, a public hearing. Was that
Yeah,
what you
public
call it?
hearing,
Yeah. Okay.
And also the breakdown.
Yeah.
So, the proportional allocation rule. The core principle governing the distribution of a pilot payment is proportional allocation. The TCIDA policy that many of the IDAs in New York specifies that pilot payments are generally allocated among the affected tax jurisdictions. The county, the town, city, and school district.
Yeah.
In proportion to the amount of real property tax and other taxes that would have been received by each jurisdiction had the project not been granted tax exemption status. So the pilot is split based on jurisdiction's tax rate.
Okay. I think that's not what's happening. So
This said that it's the core, it may not be the only one, but
Right.
because there is a solar exception.
Okay, yeah, it's a solar I want to hear about
Okay.
eventually, obviously, because that's what's most relevant that we're doing here, but okay.
All right.
So yeah, so nominally, for most projects,
Yes.
it gets split up on the same ratios as would have been the
Yes.
case, okay, okay, all right.
While the general is proportional, the TCIDA has adopted a special policy for commercial solar photovoltaic projects. For these projects, the TCIDA set a minimum pilot structure with a predetermined annual payment per megawatt of output.
Yeah.
Range of 4,200 to 4,800 per megawatt. Primary reason for this deviation is to simplify and standardize the process for energy developers across the county, eliminating the need for them to negotiate with multiple individual taxing bodies. This uniform pilot is still distributed to the affected jurisdictions.
In terms of the fraction that goes to each though, did you come across anything that said what that was?
No.
Okay.
I was assuming that it would still be proportionate based on that.
I think it's not, and Michelle, do you happen to recall if any numbers came out at that public hearing you were at? Because what Mark was believing was the case is that a significant share was going to the county and then a smaller share to the school district and town. And that, as I quickly looked up, was out of whack with the normal tax bill, and that's why I'm probing on this. So do you recall any numbers?
No, I don't know. I don't know those numbers.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if it would be helpful to look at the letter he wrote. I mean, I don't have that with me, but that's. He
And Mark
sent
couldn't remember the numbers exactly when I was talking to him, and I said, oh, it's not, so we did query, we asked the director of the IAED, what is the apportionment? I mean, it was in with about 10 other questions, and she blew that one off. So, I'm not sure what it is, and I don't know if you're trying to Google it.
Yeah.
I tried once, but I'm not, didn't hit it too hard, so maybe you could find something. And I can't remember what Mark told me, but it was sort of like maybe 50% went to the county, and then it was 30-some% for the town, and the rest of the school district. I don't know the numbers.
I don't see the ICSD letting that fly too well.
Yeah, well, okay, so now I have additional information on that part. So this particular project, the old 76 one, is in the Newark Valley School District. So let me pull out some information I have that I then got about pilots, et cetera, from Jay Franklin. That Mark and I and Jay Franklin, the director of IAED, had a little email exchange going down. Thank you.
You want the quick answer?
Yes, you had a quick answer?
Yes, TCIDA pilot payments for solar exceptions are distributed proportionally to
Okay,
the town, county, and school district based on their respective tax levies, but the specific agreement can alter this distribution.
okay, all right.
That's probably why, was it in that article that you sent that the school districts really want place on the board?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that there's a spot that's been unfilled for a while for them, for that reason. Okay. So here's what the other part of what I've learned about this. So one of the questions, okay, so part of the reason we got into this whole pilot thing is that that's the one sort of pot of money that can conceivably be used to sort of be a carrot. Or it can also be a stick. So for example, the policy adopted for solar stuff by the local development agency said there's a 30% surcharge if you build on prime farmland and or active farmland. And it's unclear if it's active prime farmland, if it's both of those. But at any rate, so in some way they did that intention to try to discourage, trying to push developers to other non-farmland. I don't think that's been successful, by the way, from what she wrote, but I think it was a little confusing. But at any rate, one question is why are these companies coming to get a pilot at all anyway? Because under state law, they have a full tax exemption for 15 years. Zero tax on what they're doing. So why are they doing this? And the answer that has been told, and I guess must be right, is that at that 15th year, then it's going to jump to the full valuation, and they don't like that jump. They don't like the uncertainty of knowing what the valuation is going to be at that point. So they are willing to enter into a pilot agreement to give a certainty of what the payments are going to be. They can do all their accounting numbers, and so they're happy. And so they're willing to pay finite dollars when they could have paid zero to avoid the unknown cost down the road. So what I had queried is, well, we're not happy with what this development agency is doing, and we want a different policy, can we? And basically the answer is no. The first answer is no, in that we can ask the idea, but they basically won't change their policy for us. They feel this is, again, they've gone through some process. So that's why I asked about the process, how they set policy. They've gone through a process to set policy, and they're basically very reluctant to modify that just because Caroline wanted something different.
Can I just make a comment about that? So looking at the Tompkins IDA policy stated policy, there's this line that says to respect variations in local municipal policy, each project application must include a letter from the host municipality endorsing the proposed payment in lieu of tax agreement with the IDA.
Yeah.
So that means Town of Caroline?
That would mean Town of Caroline, though. What did she say? I'm trying to remember.
They don't read the letter that we submit? Is that what she said?
And I don't want to get in trouble with this big word, but the feedback was something like, well, we're doing, yes, you could, it's almost a courtesy that we're letting you complain about it.
I don't understand.
I don't want to put words in it, but I'm summarizing, and Mark should really chip in, but I got, yes, they sort of said, we don't have to pay attention. You can submit that letter, but we don't have to pay any attention to it.
Okay.
So Caroline, so basically to be able to negotiate a pilot, you have to be authorized by the state to do that. And there are two avenues. One is that you are an industrial development agency. That's one set of law. And the other is that you're a municipality or other taxing authority that is not opted out of this real property tax law 47 that we talked about. Because that, which relates only to renewable energy, does authorize taxing authorities to do a pilot. But it also limits that pilot to 15 years, which is the same duration as a tax exemption. So there's no benefit really to the solar developer, because they're paying something for 15 years versus nothing for 15 years. And who knows what happens at the end of 15 years. So there's not a whole lot of incentive for them to do that, but a town can require them to do it. So the town doesn't have to pass up the money if they don't want to, but that's the limit. So to do anything different, we'd have to essentially get the legislature to make Caroline its own IDA. And I don't necessarily recommend that for various reasons, but we can get it. But anyway, so the point is the town could do a 15-year pilot if it wants to under that real property tax law, only for renewable energy things, whereas it's totally fine and proper for the IDA to do whatever duration they want. They're authorized by the state to do that. So that's why there's a difference in the two.
And were we aware of this part too? The TCIDA may waive the increased fee, the 30% on active farmland or prime farmland if 100% of the area is engaged in an agrivoltaics project.
Yes, so that is their incentive, and once I found that out, I was less. I mean, it's different than giving a tax cut, like, oh, your cost might normally be X.
Yeah.
And we're gonna go down, but okay, it's gonna go up, but we'll make it go back down. It's a little bit, but yes, it's a significant incentive.
Right.
I'm a little unclear about the 100% language. Does that mean, what if they only want to do agrivoltaics on 50% of the development area? Does that mean they're not eligible to waive it on that 50% of the development area? Or 100% of the area that is agrivoltaics can have that surcharge waived? It was unclear to me in the language. I think it's the latter, that they waive it on the portion that you're under agrivoltaics, but I am not clear. I could be wrong. All right, so the Ithaca City School District has opted out of the real property tax law, but like the Newark School District has not.
So what does that mean exactly?
So so when they opt out, that means they are owed taxes by the solar developer if the project is within the Ithaca City School District.
So the pilot does not affect them.
Right, so the pilot does not affect them. In addition, so what he says, yes, for developments within the school district. Right, so what Jay wrote was developments within the school district that has the effect of driving solar developers to the development agency for a pilot, since by default they must pay full school taxes on development. Okay, so I think that if IDA negotiates a pilot, they can negotiate a lower rate for the school taxes. So
Without the school having a say in it?
well, that's where they're, I mean, again, probably they can also have a letter. And I think that's why I hope to have a board on the whatever, so yes. In addition, the county has passed a law saying that any pilot has to pay the full tax rate to the county. So you can't, so they're saying that for county taxes, you can't reduce the amount of payment in the pilot below what it should be normally.
So the board that's created by the county
Yeah.
has made it so that they can't have their taxes reduced.
Right, okay, so, and so he said, for example, there's a solar development in Danby that is paying full ICSD taxes and is also paying a pilot for the full taxes to the county, but it has no town taxes because the town, it turns out there's a 60-day clock. If you don't ask for a pilot within a certain time frame, you're SOL, they say.
Wow.
And so Danby didn't do that. And so Danby is getting nothing. The county's getting full amount, and the ICSD, I guess, is not part of the pilot. So anyway, so it can be a weird mismatch. All right, so
So they're only getting a discount of part of their tax bill,
yeah, it's only the town part.
which is the smallest part of it.
Typically, so, well, actually, so I looked at my tax bills. And I have a little bit of property in the Cantor School District, but I felt was maybe more like Newark Valley. It's actually not that different from the Ithaca City School District. But in the Cantor School District, of my taxes, about 60%, 61% goes to the school district. So almost 2/3 goes to the school. And then 27% goes to Caroline, and that's both the Caroline property tax, fire, and light. And then only 12% goes to the county.
Okay.
So the county gets the smallest portion.
Right.
I'm quite sure that Mark told me that for this pilot, the county's getting the biggest portion. And the
Of
others
the payment.
of payment out of that pilot, biggest fraction of the pilot.
Huh.
And again, the numbers are almost the same it's a little bit, ICSD gets a little higher percentage. Yeah, so
Why would that be opposite?
Yeah.
that's exactly, I don't know the answer. That's why I wanted you to find out,
Yeah.
do they have this written down as a policy somewhere? So we'll dig harder on that. Again, it doesn't in the end affect what we're doing.
No.
I just thought it was good for us to now understand what the heck pilots are all about and how they happen and what's going on. But the final piece of this, Oh, yeah, so Jay Franklin did say that some towns and schools have said they don't want a pilot from the development agency because of exactly these sort of issues. He says that hasn't stopped the pilot from being granted. The IDA can grant without any local approval if they deem it to be in their solar policy best interest. So, if Carolyn said, hey, we don't like this rate you've negotiated, basically tough luck,
For 15 years?
No, this is gonna be a 25-year pilot. Yeah. Okay, last point I'm gonna make on that is, and Jay Franklin was involved in the state trying to figure out how to value solar properties. So he said that the New York State requires assessors to use a specific solar calculator. That formula is what got thrown out as being unconstitutional in a recent court case. And he said that formula gives a substantial break. It gives about a 67% tax break on renewable energy on solar installations. So he says the legislature is poised, there is stuff ready to fix the constitutional issue. It doesn't change that amount of break. And so what he says is what he expects to happen once that gets fixed is that most solar developers won't do a pilot because they can get a really good deal straight from the state because the state is sort of devaluing solar property, for policy reasons, right? They want to encourage solar to happen. So yeah, strictly he said, once this goes into effect, he thinks most solar developers will skip the pilot and simply pay taxes. So worrying about the pilot in the future might be pointless because there may be fewer of them. So I just wanted all that out there. So we have the background. We can get to that. I am proposing a slight change in the pilot benefit payment section, as you guys probably saw, that predated learning all this, but I don't think it suggests it's probably a good idea. Even better idea than perhaps I thought. So
if pilots become a moot point, is there any, just reading in the solar siting law that agrivoltaics it gives us less leverage?
Well, since we can't impact the pilot very much, it doesn't, other than the extent to which the IDA is granting a benefit to agrivoltaics, it does give us less ability. I think, again, we'll get to this shortly. I think we should still require some sort of community benefit payment, and then that would be something that Carolyn could conceivably reduce/waive as a financial incentive. And as I think I wrote to you all, the other incentive for still classifying something as agrivoltaics is that there may be other breaks, like you don't have to pay attention to this regulation here. Like the fact they have to keep the land covered all the time, that sort of stuff. So there may be reasons to define it anyway, but yes, it does give us a bit less financial incentive. Great. Okay, so that's the pilot stuff as background. Again, not directly germane, but at least gives us, again, I already, it was looking like we couldn't do much about the pilot, and so we didn't have much money to dangle. And I think that's definitely true now. Okay. So then I want to move on, if you guys are all ready with that, any other comments on pilots or questions or thoughts? Everyone still awake after all that? All right, so let me see if I can figure out how to pop up. So in terms of the stuff I sent out regarding some thoughts on how we might proceed in terms of modifying things. Right, so I sent out several definitions and then some proposed changes to the law. And so let's start off with the definitions and sort of the thinking in the definitions. So, Guillermo had pointed out how you need to sort of define what agrivoltaics means for your community, because that is, when you're going to give a benefit or when you're going to cut a break or whatever you're going to do. I got a little uncomfortable trying to define agrivoltaics very specifically for Caroline, Because, well, everyone sort of has a thought of what agrivoltaics is in general, which is you're doing both farming and photovoltaics. So I came up with this two-piece definition in which we do a very generic agrivoltaic facility definition. But then we say, okay, but if you want to qualify for various whatever perks that we can offer, then you're the kind of agrivoltaic facility that does these other things too. So was my thinking. I got uncomfortable just trying to like buck the world in terms of what agrivoltaic means. So that's where I got to that. As far as what I put in them, it mostly eventually starts talking about, guidelines and stuff, and we'll talk about that in a second. So first question, just in terms of definitions that are there, and should I pop them up on a screen? Or do we everyone have them well enough in front of them?
I have them just on my computer, but I think it's more for Adam and
I
Brad.
mean, I think I'm just, which email is it?
Okay, yeah, so it was one I sent, I don't know what I sent, maybe you have I have it printed
Is
in
it
front of
discussion
me.
draft for possible changes?
Yes, that's the
Okay,
one.
yeah, I
That's
got
the
it.
one. And so actually I could, let me just do this stuff. There we go. All right, so let me see if I open this up, if that's gonna. Let's see. I'll try sharing screen from this thing here.
Well, I think Brad sent
He had
a
some
marked
thoughts.
up copy with changes to
Oh.
your draft, right?
Maybe I
Did
missed it.
you?
You marked up a copy. I saw some thoughts from you, Brad. Did you actually mark up the draft?
I did.
Oh, well, that was my
Not
error in not seeing that.
not much. It was very minimal markup that I sent out.
Okay, yeah, I don't have that. And that's good that you did that, and bad on me for not noticing. So I apologize.
Okay. You want me to just send it again here?
No, I'm sure I have it. Let's see. And it's only a question if we want to put that. I mean,
Well, if you're gonna put one up, it'd
Mhm,
probably be
right.
good to put up
Right.
Brad's version.
So Brad could do that, right? If you have access to it on the computer you're on.
Yeah, I can
Okay,
do that.
so if you bring it up in Word and then share your screen, we'll all be able to see it.
Okay. Share. You have to give me permission.
Yeah, and the window just popped up, so there we go.
Okay. All right. So there we go. It's up.
All right, and okay, so
Okay.
then do your best to make it big. Literally just under whatever, yeah, under view or something. Yeah, under view, you should be able to increase the magnification or somewhere. Yeah, good. Okay,
Good.
yeah, all right,
Bigger than mine, I'll read that one.
Yeah. okay.
Is that good for everybody?
Yeah, that's good for me. Okay, so just looking at those first two definitions, I know it's weird because some of it refers to stuff that's not there because it refers to stuff in the document we haven't talked about yet. How do people feel about this? About defining a qualifying agrivoltaic facility? Is that too clunky? Is that fine?
Well, as long as design standards of section 8.6 and design guidelines of 8.6D, I mean, as long as those are different and detailed, then this makes sense. But I guess I think we need to look at those and make sure that that really is saying what we want it to say. That the design standards and the design guidelines remain in the law, because we had talked about, I mean, there were some places in here that maybe with the vegetation management, you asked if we should even have design guidelines or standards. So, I mean, that's kind of what this is dependent on, is that we have
Yeah.
complete and accurate and understandable standards and guidelines.
Okay. Fine. Should we then jump down to that to look at those? Would you recommend that? I'm okay with that.
So here's 8.6.
All right. So, okay, so what I did for this part, and this is, we're gonna, this is rough, so let's hack away at it. I looked at what Connecticut had in that document that Barbara came up with a long, long time ago. And I looked at some of the things that Guillermo sort of summarized in one of his notes, and I looked more particularly at things in the woman, the professor at Cornell who was doing some research, that her summary document. And then I tried to put them in some sensible division between things that we really think they have to do, design standards, and things that it's probably a little, either we don't, I wasn't comfortable saying you have to do this because I wasn't sure that it was always feasible or possible, but it might be nice. So that's how I divided it up.
So like under 8.6A,
Yeah,
it's basically restating what was in the definition. Except your last sentence there, that's parenthetically that it says, or could say that must meet at least one or two of the design guidelines. So
right.
I'm not sure that we need to restate that here if we've already stated in the definition, and certainly don't want it to be a different definition than what we stated in the definitions, right?
Okay, yep, good point.
So, what we can do is I can just hold on, I can hit track change and we can
Yeah,
just
do track
kinda,
changes, we'll make changes, and then all you have to do is at the end of the meeting, send it to me.
yeah, there we go. All right. And so we can just
So potentially you just want to delete that whole,
strike that from the record.
is that the suggestion, Barb?
I think so, yeah. But except your parenthetical there implies that you wanted to discuss
Yes.
whether we should require all design standards and design guidelines, or only some of them need to be met to be a qualifying facility.
Yeah, and the way I was trying to phrase it was that the designs standards have to be met. And then the question was, under design guidelines, do we simply say, this would be nice? Or do we say, you've got to make a good faith effort as defined by, you've done at least a couple of these?
Well, I mean, isn't that the difference between standards and guidelines, that we can't say that guidelines are required? Because they're not, that the standards are,
Right.
right?
Well, so therefore I'm trying to thread, how do you say, is there a way to say, you gotta do something along these lines? As in, you have to, they could then say the following set of, two of the following set standards must be met. I mean, you could add them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not questioning the concept of
No, I get-
requiring, less than all of them. Because if it's requiring all of them, then they truly are standards. But if we go down to D, where it says design guidelines for a qualifying facility, these guidelines are desired but not required.
Yeah,
We then have to change that to say that,
yes,
two of these 5 guidelines are required
right.
and the rest are encouraged, something like that. So that's what you have in mind?
Potentially, that was a topic of
Okay.
discussion, because again, getting stuck in the dilemma that you can say, these are guidelines, the town would like you to follow them. If it gets completely blown off, what was the purpose of doing that?
Yeah.
But I don't know a good enforcement mechanism. Theoretically, some people, it's the whole idea behind the review board and site plan review. If they're asking and pushing whatever, that they get some amount of compliance from the developer. But we have found in various times that it hasn't really happened that way. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I think, if you require, say, a farm plan and you require, let's say, a minimum of 80% of the available areas available, or for agricultural use, just by requiring that, that will likely encourage them to meet those other design specs, right? Because if you're requiring that to be used for farming in that area, just by requiring that, you have to meet certain design specifications if there's gonna be farming, right? They're not gonna want to put panels with only 2 feet between the solar panels if you're requiring farming there on the space.
Yeah, well,
So I think like saying a minimum of 25 foot at the end of the rows, a minimum of 25-foot buffer. I think you could say those are encouraged or suggested, but as part of the like other bullet points that are suggestions or whatever. Um, but making, focusing on the farming as the requirement. Um, and if they hit the farm plan and the minimum of 80%, if you make those required, well, to be able to meet that, they're going to have to adhere to some of these other things to make it a farm. And do we really care if it's, 20 or 25-foot buffer as long as, it's meeting the design standards for agrivoltaics, to produce some sort of farm product.
I agree. I think we should figure out which ones are the most important.
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
And make those the standards, and then the rest will just happen. And also,
Yeah.
the industry is gonna change, so if the 25-foot buffer doesn't work, smaller tractors are gonna be coming and.
Right. And so just by saying that it's farming that's required that's the requirement. Well, if farming changes with time, then
Okay, and I definitely had discomfort putting a specific number down because I'm not a farmer and I don't, but on the other hand, as we're discussing with people, you don't know what's gonna happen 20 years down the road instead of a different kind of farming. So you can say, oh, they can work it out to do this particular kind of farming now, but you hate to have that design and lock them in. So I did specify I think she said 20 feet at least or something in the document, but I don't know of a right number there. And so I'm happy with trying to get there some other way. If people think we can, because I had definite trepidations of trying to put a finite number on something that is a moving target. While still allowing flexibility for the future, so. Okay, so fine, I think it's a great idea, we can go, I think that's the intent of today is to go through and, I gave my thoughts, but let's work on this to come up
I
with.
think just making those last two bullet points, VII and VIII, the required ones, these here, the required and everything else, I think will just fall into place.
I think you want to include VI too, just because that says what the other 20%, at most 20% of the area.
Which one?
Pollinator habitat and wildlife habitat may comprise at most 20% of the area designated as agriculture.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, maybe those three as the required.
Yeah. But can I just ask a question about I'm still wrestling with the concept of why we would not want agrivoltaics to be all animal husbandry. So VII says a minimum of 80% of the area must come from crop production and animal husbandry. And then Bill's parenthetical is not sure how to phrase this to avoid a 100% grazing operation. So why would we not want a 100% grazing operation?
Yeah, fair question. And I think Brad had the same comment in his text. He didn't want to do that either.
Right.
My thinking was, and I think Caleb would probably hate me for this, but basically grazing is fairly cost competitive now. And I was thinking of trying to give some financial breaks because they actually had to do something different than what they're doing now. They could design a tight set of arrays that can be grazed now. That's what's happening now. Caleb is doing that. And so it seemed to me, why are we giving them a break when their costs are the same or lower just because they're keeping sheep there? So that was roughly my thinking, that I was trying to create a reason for giving them, but it's not a great reason.
Because of all the other benefits that accrue. I mean, you're using less fossil fuels to farm the land because you're not mowing. You're, probably, I mean, arguably, doing better for soil health by having grazers rather than, mowers, tractors, plow, running over the land, compacting it, all the time. It produces agricultural revenue, and we were asked to do this by the Ag Committee. And so, rather than us saying to the Ag Committee, we don't want you all to be grazers, we want some of you to be grazers and some of you to be crop people. To me, that, that's us telling the Ag Committee what kind of agriculture is appropriate for the town of Caroline. So I'm just not real fired up about, saying that it can't be 100% grazing. I see a lot of benefits from
Okay.
grazing, and that would then stimulate, the butchering industry and the meat marketing industry and all of that if we had more of 100% grazing solar operations throughout the region, right?
Yeah, well, as Guillermo stated, in practice, that's all the large operations are doing.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just too hard. So I
Yeah.
was trying to incentivize doing something harder. But it's
now.
okay. And to also be clear, I was thinking we should definitely pass this by the Ag Committee
Yeah,
because I want their input on that and saying, hey, here's where we've come up to with, but you guys, the actual farmers, tell us, if this doesn't sit well, because a lot of them, I mean, haying is a common thing, dairy cattle, not so much anymore.
yeah.
There's not a lot of other commodity crop production. How many people like raise corn to, for feed or anything else? So it would be nice to revitalize the crop production here, but that's really not our purview. But it'd be nice that there was that. But I agree. So and I say I got uncomfortable as I was writing this, trying to figure out how the hell do you do that anyway? In a way that's fair. So in which case, what changes here?
I think it would, so VII, I think that's up there on the screen, could read a minimum of 80% of the available area for agriculture, must come from some combination of animal husbandry and crop production. Or crop production.
Well, that's essentially the inverse. That's the corollary to VI right now, which is that Power well is at most 20%. And the corollary is everything else is not that.
Right.
If it's agrivoltaics, therefore it's agriculture. So that's what I'm saying. How would this?
Well, I don't know. Do we need to just remove the words crop production and animal husbandry, or do we want to, include some sort of, definition of what agriculture is? I mean, do we
Okay.
define somewhere agricultural production? I don't know that we've done that. And so that might be a definition so that a minimum 80% of the available area must be in agricultural production. And then if we define agricultural production as being either crop production or animal husbandry or some combination of both, then I think we're covered.
Okay. So so where this came from is at the American Farmland Trust has a definition of agrivoltaics.
Okay.
And in it, they specify crop production, animal husbandry, and grazing as 3 separate things.
Oh, okay.
And I found that a little odd because when I looked it up, grazing seemed to be a kind of animal husbandry, which is what I was writing that I'm kind of, so it's unclear to me, but that's why those words are there, is that they were saying they wanted that as part of the definition of agrivoltaics, because as farmers, they thought that was important.
Uh-huh.
So one thing it could be, in VI, where it says pollinator habitat, making price almost 20%, it can be like then semicolon something, the remainder must be in agricultural production.
Yeah.
And then there could be a
And then
definition of
define
agriculture.
agriculture.
Or it could be the remainder must be in some combination of crop production and or animal husbandry.
Well, no, because I don't think we're saying that you have to have 80% or more in agriculture and 20% or less in pollinator habitat and wildlife habitat. I don't think we're requiring pollinator habitat
Right.
and wildlife habitats,
That's
right?
Yeah. No. Yes, the intent here was simply to say, you mostly gotta do ag.
Right,
You can have some of this other stuff, because we agree it's nice and cool and great,
right,
but your emphasis has to be on doing ag. And so that was the intent.
okay.
It sounds like VI, VII, and VIII are the three most important ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, all right, so did we come up with wording for that section of the pollinator habitat?
oh, so I was misunderstanding this, so,
It could be
so,
of the, okay, sorry.
no, so I guess I'm just, I think I was misunderstanding the intent, so as it's written now, the what's designated as agriculture would include pollinator habitat and wildlife habitat, so that's included as agriculture. Right, is how I'm reading this now, I wasn't
Yes,
reading it
and
that
that
way
may be
before.
not the right way to phrase it. I think that's a good, yeah, exactly how, that's why agriculture's in quotes there.
Right,
Because it's like the developer scrawled agriculture on the map. And then we're saying, okay, but you can only count up to 20% of that as these, what we would not really call agriculture
Right.
things.
so what if it is just a honeybee solar farm?
Yeah, we're saying you can't do that.
We're saying we can't do that, and the reason for that being,
I really want, I mean, again, personal value.
Yeah.
I want it to be ag. I want it to be
yeah,
Now, you're
crops
saying
and
it can't be
animals
that,
and,
but it can only not be that if it's using
right, they can do that.
prime.
Right.
They can,
No, they can do that if they want, they just won't get any advantages, and our only perk is maybe a slightly lower community
Right.
benefit payment, I mean. Really, I'm not saying you can't do that in the town, you're saying you
Right.
can't do that and get whatever benefits
And get
that we
the
yet
benefit.
have to
we
get
get
some.
pat on the back.
gotcha, okay. So I guess I'm okay with that, we just need to use the same language, the same term. So instead of designated as agriculture
Yeah.
in quotes, I think we need to say, designated as agricultural production or whatever term it is that we're using in VII as well. Right? So just so that we're
Yeah.
consistent.
Well, I think what I'm getting hung up on is VII, where it says minimum of 80% of the available area. Is this 80% of available area? Is that whatever's not under the solar panels? I mean, how are we defining it, the land for available for agriculture?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that may need a definition.
Because it's like obviously if you have a 5 acre parcel and you're putting on solar panels, most of it's going to be solar panels, you would assume, or at least half. Even if it's agrivoltaics, probably half of it'll be of that area footprint will be, solar panels. So is it? I'm assuming, but I think should be clearly defined. If we're saying if we're throwing out numbers of like 80% of the available area, I think we need to have a definition of what we mean by that. It's not necessarily the area under the panels. It's the area that's not under the panels or something.
Well, and it gets difficult because, because he'll grow mushrooms under the panels.
Right.
And or you have a crop that takes high sunlight, you're only gonna put that in the middle of the row, but do you do something closer to the panels where it's partially shaded?
Right.
Right.
So that's why I just didn't know like how, are we defining that? Are we defining that 80%? Is that just going to be again 80% of
Yeah.
Of the area of the solar farm has to be utilized in some form or fashion for agriculture?
Yeah.
I'm picturing the whole fenced area, 80%.
That agree that would not be possible probably because of how much is, if you say the area enclosed as part of the facility, there's gonna be a fraction taken up by the, you know, the panels and the transformer, et cetera. So I'm starting to think that maybe the farm plan needs to show what they consider the farmable area or something like that. And then we're saying of that farmable area or the area planned to be farmed, that it mostly has to be not Palomar habitat and wildlife habitat. I mean, the other possibility is just say it has to be one of the things. You can't do Palomar habitat and wildlife habitat. I didn't want to say that because I thought, yeah, some of that's good.
Mhm.
But yeah, I wouldn't know what to call the available area. So maybe the developer, in conjunction with the farmer, has to define that as part of their farm plan.
Yeah. And yeah, that was the one thing I was getting hung up here when I was reading this is just, because like you said, Bill, is that yeah, sometimes you have mushrooms you're growing, or sometimes you have big tractor. And what if a farmer is only doing, row crops in between the panels, but then you have Caleb who's doing sheep and the sheep are going under the panels. And does one person get more credit than the other because they're utilizing more of the area for agriculture? Or does it matter? Should it just be that everything in the fence is being farmed, you know, as best as possible, as best as humanly possible?
I don't know. I mean, yes, I think as best as humanly possible, but that's also squishy words. So.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't suggesting we use
No,
those
I'm
words.
yeah, I'm teasing, I mean, no, that's exactly right. I mean, it's like many things. If everyone could be trusted to act in a, good manner, then a lot of stuff wouldn't have to be written so carefully.
Sure.
I mean, these developers it's all gonna be, mostly it's gonna be about money, so. That's really what's gonna talk the most. Most of this is just gonna be something they just breeze through. They're gonna do whatever is the cheapest option. So there's not a whole lot we can really do without an incentive.
Yeah. So yes, unfortunately. So we're right now under it talking about the farm plan. And the last sentence of the farm plan says the farm plan shall describe the planned agricultural activities and discuss how the system design enables those to be done. It can have a stipulation, the farm plan, shall delineate, show something, the area that will be farmed. Add that in there, and then that maybe becomes the first bullet point under design standard, and then the later one can say of that area shown as being farmed at most, it's got to be these things with the most the other, something like that. Most 20% of.
What if I'm just trying to think, trying to think through that, that solar facilities have area within the fence, but they also have area outside of the fence at times. And I'm just wondering if we, kind of backed off away from the 80% figure and just said something along the lines of, the majority of acreage of the, of the entire project or whatever that, whatever you would call that, needs to be in some sort of agricultural production. So, it's getting away from, whether it's, the screening that goes on outside the fence or, do they have, I don't know, it just seems like
A broader.
yeah, I mean, it gives them more leeway where to place agriculture and types of agriculture, but it addresses the whole plot of land, because we were talking about, well, what's inside the fence? Well, it's more than what's inside the fence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it was Guillermo pointed out, let's say they want to plant apple trees as a screening species.
Right,
Then you are
Yeah.
farming outside the fence probably.
yeah,
But it should
Yeah.
count.
yes,
Um,
yeah,
by the way, it was Michelle, you sent me, and I don't think I did not forward that, but there is a research project, where they're gonna be looking at using solar panels to shade apple trees.
right,
And there's certain times when it prevents hail damage,
Yeah.
and in hot, dry years, it can be beneficial and all that kind of stuff, so anyway.
yeah.
Um. So, uh. Okay,
I agree with that in the way that I think being so specific on a lot of this may make them just kind of gloss over it, because they don't have to do most of this.
Yeah.
It's stuff that they can. So if we make it more broad, then it's gonna be easier for them to follow. Maybe.
yeah.
Maybe.
And I'm not necessarily opposed. I mean, again, I started with things like majority, and then I said, it's just, let's put another, but at any rate. Barb, would you be willing, having now heard all our thoughts, to work on these two sections and maybe turn them into one section, or however you want to do it? But I currently have a design guidelines, design standards.
So you're talking about C and D as the two.
Yes, the two sections.
Okay,
To reword, reorganize, rationalize, based on what you have heard today as input.
I can give it a shot.
Okay. Because if there's one thing that I hate more than a root canal, it's trying to draft language in committee.
Right,
So. But it was really useful to have the thoughts. So thank you, everyone. That was good.
So shall we go back up to the
Yeah, let's go back to the proposed new definitions, which may, Alright. So the other definitions I had is saying that, a farm plan is a written plan, talking about farming. And specifying that there be a vegetation management plan, because I wanted to be able to refer to that. So. I think those are, thoughts on those two, that fine as written. They've parallel, we already had a emergency response plan definition. I just paralleled the language, made it, similar to that. Okay.
I made some very minor edits there,
Okay, so,
about grazing or other agricultural activity. I kind of, inserted that.
okay, I see, yeah, let's see,
Under vegetative management, you just had grazing is the preferred means of
Yes,
vegetation
yeah.
management. Well, what if someone, again, wants to farm it, but they don't want to have sheep,
Okay.
So we're trying to encourage agriculture and not necessarily grazing, but that grazing or farm activity is the preferred means of vegetation management.
Right, I think I'm just thinking, not objecting. And does that mean that it says the vegetation? So again, obviously what I was trying to do here, is formalize the fact that, again, if you, as opposed to mowing, we'd rather you have grazing. And so Kevin's suggestion was make sure they have to sort of evaluate grazing, think about it, and that's why this was written. I
Sure.
thought it was a good suggestion. So
Sure, but
now, however, we're further down the stream in terms of thinking about other agriculture.
Right. And so you were saying, oh, well, we want to get away from just sheep. And I don't necessarily disagree. I mean, I think we want to make sure it's available to all farmers, not just sheep grazers. Well, there's grazing, but you're not usually going to mix sheep and say vegetable production.
Not
You
if
wouldn't
you
have a
want
very good,
vegetables.
yeah. And so if you got a vegetable farmer coming in there and they're doing, small time commercial vegetables, then obviously just the act of tilling and planting or otherwise maintaining those alleyways with vegetable production is a means of vegetation management. Um,
Right.
so
All right, so I'm gonna say that what we could do is say instead that delete the first sentence, which is grazing to the preferred means, get rid of that, and say the vegetation management plan shall evaluate alternative to mowing for vegetation management.
That's a good one, yeah.
And then period, I think, and then it has to say if and then the question how to phrase the end of it. I mean, again, only trying to, or is that good enough? That it has to evaluate, evaluate them, or do we want to put that extra in there about saying, hey,
You could say if mowing is the chosen method, the
Right.
evaluations shall explain why you're being
yeah,
such a.
why that is. Yeah. Okay, maybe you should say why that is preferred, but I like the dickhead language, sure. Yeah, that's where I was going. I think that's fine. So then where it says if grazing other is not, it becomes if mowing is the chosen method. Why, and it can be like why that is preferred or something. I don't know that, we could tweak that language at some point. Okay. All right, then my other, so something like that. We good with that?
Mhm.
All right. So then the other next change had to do with the community benefits section. So again, this language came from the Office of Renewable Energy, whatever, and ORI's draft language for model solar law. And again, at the time, I was much less knowledgeable about pilots and everything else than we are now. And so that language came straight from them. I'm proposing, what I say, splitting up into two pieces. I think it's okay. I mean, I'm as in legal to do. I'm not positive.
You mean the community payment thing?
Yes, to essentially require a community benefit outside of a pilot. I do know that this developer approached the town. I'm not sure anything came of it, but I think that they were certainly willing to do some sort of other thing for the town in addition, but I will confirm that with Mark.
You mean the one in 76?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I don't, but anyway, so again, and the whole purpose of this here is to give some pot of money the town controls. And I guess they would have to go through the town lawyer to make sure that this is actually something we can do. Okay, so that seems okay.
Mhm.
We'll leave that in, okay? And then I think the most of it is what we were just talking about. Is there anything down at the very bottom of the?
oh, I just stuck a little bullet in there just to, talk about that
Yeah,
agricultural activity.
okay,
Any within the agrivoltaic facility shall be conducted by a person or company meeting the New York State definition of a farmer whose total gross income comes from farming. From farming is at least $10,000. So I don't necessarily feel strongly about the specific language or exactly where does this belong, but I think it should be mentioned so that again, it will additionally discourage just mowing, right? It'll encourage uh, a commercial farmer to come in and do something.
so yeah, it was a good time to talk about this, and so I basically don't know, and this, I would certainly. This would be a specific that I would also want to kick to the ag committee to see if they had thoughts on, I think once we kind of get a little further along, that's what we should do. And the rationale being that when we were working on the comprehensive plan and various other things, some of what was percolating up was, you know, that the town needed to do something to help encourage agriculture, that the state had various programs, but they weren't accessible to a lot of Carolinians who were doing farming because they couldn't meet the state definition of a farmer. That's my whole experience is being told that as opposed to anything else, but
Well, in the Ag Committee and their plan that they just, developed recently, it defines a farmer very differently than the New York State definition of farmer.
yeah. And that's true, 'cause if it's in there, potentially we could say that meets that definition.
Well, that definition, under their definition, they said I qualify as a farmer.
Well, maybe that's a little too loose.
Well, yeah.
It's a
maybe
very
not, maybe
loose,
not. I mean,
it's a very loose definition.
Yes.
now, again, realistically, there's enough acreage at these solar sites that if you've been contracted to do it, you'll probably do a lot more farming than you and I do.
Yes.
But
I'm just saying it would be interesting to get the take from the Ag Committee, because I think there are some on that committee who might bristle at using this. I mean, personally, I think for what we're talking about with an agrivoltaic facility and the scope of the agriculture activity that we want to encourage or have present, I think using the New York State definition makes sense. But I just anticipate that the Ag Committee might have at least some members who might not agree with that.
Well, I could see a situation of, let's say, one of these developments was going up next to someone who's got a very functional homestead, and they're just like, I can manage all this. I can manage an extra 30 acres of land, and I can put my chickens through it and grow some crops on there, but I'm not gonna sell it, it's just for me.
Yeah, right.
But I'm gonna get paid by the
That's true.
developer to maintain the vegetation.
right. So. All right, so so Barbara's suggesting it's reasonable to take that kind of proposal to the Ag Committee, that suggestion, say, okay, we're thinking of whether we should do it like this or some other way.
Yeah,
and what do you guys
or
think?
something, more flexible and inclusive.
Okay, I think that's good. Yeah, because I didn't want to we've gone a long way down this road and learned a lot. And they haven't taken the journey with us.
Right.
But nevertheless, we've gotten to a place where I think they do need to be brought back in to
Yeah.
the loop. Because this really is sort of, they are not all the farmers in the town, but that's the point. We're trying to benefit farmers of the town
Right.
as much as possible. And
And I think we've kicked around some ideas about how to get the farmers involved, and I think what we need to do is actually send out a survey. I
Mhm.
think what they did one time was send out an email survey to the farmers, because getting them to come to the meetings is difficult. And but sending out a survey might be good when especially if we're really wanting to nail them down on perhaps a single question.
yeah, well, great, and I think that, I'll leave the details to the Ag Committee, which I know you are part of, and but I think that's however, but that's good, because I understand the issues of getting a bunch at a meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, let's see, so it's about 9 o'clock. We could launch into a little bit of what Guillermo sent us. Or put that off to start with that on next meeting, and I'm okay either way.
I think we should do it next meeting.
Okay, all right. I hear one guy, and I saw a big smile on Adam's face, so,
Sounds good to me.
okay, all right, we'll do that. Okay, and so take a look at, so he went through very carefully, and has a lot of little notes in there. And sometimes, it'll be stuff, as he said, it's all suggestions. I think he's just trying to be very nitpicky and thorough. And I think we can feel free to take some and then leave some and go on from there, but we'll step through it piece by piece. Okay, so our next meeting currently is scheduled for December 16th, I think. Where's my?
Yeah.
Okay, is that okay? My agenda.
Still good for me.
Yes.
Okay, Michelle, Brad?
Yeah, you
Okay.
said 16th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on into January, the sort of corollary time is closest becomes the week of the 19th, so the Tuesday would be the 20th. We could also do the 22nd if people prefer that.
I'm not available the 20th.
Okay, or we can go the previous week is another option, which would be the Tuesday would be the 13th, or there's Wednesday the 14th or Thursday the 15th.
I won't be here that week.
I can't do the 14th or 15th.
Okay, you'll be here the whole week.
you're-
Okay. What about the 22nd, which is a Thursday of January?
No.
No?
Oh, wait, 22nd. Hang a minute. Yes, I can do that.
It's good for me.
Okay, Brad, does the 22nd work for you of January?
Should be fine.
Okay, Michelle?
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
I just will say, and I'll do my homework before the December meeting,
Yeah.
but I will say that I'm like, booked solid up until the 22nd for that previous week, so I won't be doing anything this related in the week before that meeting. So
Okay.
as long as that's understood, I'm good with it.
Okay. That's fine. Okay, that sounds great. In that case, I think the meeting's adjourned.
Great.
Thank you all. Good work.
yeah.
Yeah.